The following podcast contains spoilers and adult language and death. Lots and lots of death.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm dead. No, I'm Steve.
And I am Death. In this episode, we're going to be discussing episode 5 of season 2 of The Walking Dead: Dead City. Title of the episode is The Bird Always Knows. Yeah, so I guess we'll find out if the bird did always know.
See, and I got to say that that took me by surprise, because I was aware that the bird is the word,
right?
But I was not aware that the bird always knows. So
no, that's backwards from what I'm used to. I'm used to
the
bird
me too.
Being the word. So,
mama ooh mau mau, mama ooh mau a mau. Yes, the whole thing. Yeah,
right, from beginning to end. So before we get into our individual points for the episode and talk details, let's first, before we get there, let's just rapid fire quick thoughts on the episode. I went first last week, so Steve, what did you think of episode 5, Bird Always Knows? The bird is the word, but it also always knows.
That's right.
So what did you think?
Bird. Bird is the word. Yes. I liked it. I did. I really, ever since the Ghoul Boat episode, which was episode 2, so 3 episodes ago, which I thought was terrible. Mm-hmm. I've really been enjoying the show. I think I kind of tempered my expectations, maybe recalibrated a little over what I was expecting the show to be, mm-hmm. and like purposely said it's not going to be Last of Us, so stop expecting it to be Last of Us.
Yes.
And ever since I did that, I just kind of enjoyed the bits in it that they do well. And this episode, I mean, first of all, oh my God, it was so great to just see people just get torn to shreds. Yeah, and big characters, right? Right. That you're like, oh, this person's dead. Oh, this person's dead. Oh, they get that person. Oh my God. I mean, it's just one after another. And I like that because for me, the Walking Dead, the thing about the show that for years and years was great was you'd watch every episode, and even though it was much less frequent than I think we want to remember it as, there still was this idea that literally at any moment of any episode, other than like Andy Lincoln and like Norman Reedus, anybody could die.
Right.
That any character could go into a revolving door and just get torn to shreds. I mean, yeah, and it was kind of nice because I think Fear was so timid, and the showrunners, I was thinking about it because I for a while I think I texted you and I said, oh my God, they killed more people in this one episode than the Knuckleheads did in their like 4 seasons, right?
Right.
I don't think that's true, but I did go back and look at it, and every major character that they killed on Fear the Walking Dead, it was because the actor wanted to leave the show.
That's not a good track record.
You know what I mean? No, not for this show, not for this universe. No, I mean, so and again, that really bothered me that they're just running around amongst the walkers and nobody ever gets bit, no one ever gets damaged at all. And here in this one, just the absurdity of Narvaez is like dragging Herschel through this like crowd of walkers, right. And Maggie is like pursuing her. So it was awesome and ridiculous at the same time. So yeah. So I enjoyed a lot of what they did. I love that Negan is playing both sides and kind of formulating ways to get rid of people without like getting his hands dirty, so to speak. And And so that was fun and clever, and so I there's a lot of stuff in this I really liked. So I'm enjoying it, and I really like this episode. How about you? What did you think?
We just talked about it before we started, so Steve knows what I think. So he's giggling with glee because he knows that we're going to disagree.
Yeah.
I was like you. 1 and 2 were just not great. And then there was some improvement in 3, and we both agreed last week. We both really liked episode 4. Loved all of the extra layers we got from Narvaez, and just there was like a delicateness. There was and there was just a, I don't know, just and of course, Kim Coates. Just there was an elevation to the episode that was missing in some of the others, and it was just really great. Not the case in this episode to me. I felt like we sort of plunged backwards into like at least episode 3, but really closer to episode 2. To me personally, there were some scenes that I did enjoy, and you just mentioned a couple of them there. Like the Negan manipulation is really interesting to watch. He's really good at it, and you forget how he's good at manipulation because we're used to he's the brutality guy. You know what I mean? Why? Why just kill someone when you could also, melt their face off and then throw them into the fire? You know what I mean? Like he always took it that extra special level. And that's what we're used to, but you forget that he also is a really good manipulator and was good at using his charm and his manipulation at getting people to do the things that he wanted without them even realizing that they were doing it. And he was really good at creating situations so that they benefited him. Now, this time around, he's trying to do that in a much more altruistic way. He's trying to like mess this all up because he just wants to get out of there, and he just wants to, secure the safe passage for his family. But it's still Negan being Negan in the manipulative sense, and it's been very interesting to watch, and I have enjoyed that. And there was a lot of different instances of that happening in this episode. I did like the Negan and the Christos scenes. I thought that those were really well done. And I enjoyed the scenes where the Croat was standing up to the Dama, and he does it more than once, but their argument at the end. And I agree that I give them props for the amount of death that was in this episode. I would say they were all pretty unexpected, but the circumstances around them I thought was lame, and I didn't like a lot of them. And like, to me, I felt like, there was a lot of death where it was like, oh no, it felt like there wasn't a lot of, I don't know, like motivation to like get out of the way of the walker that's just about to bite you. They're like, oh, there's a walker in front of me. Just like this late in the game into the apocalypse, it just, you and I have talked before, like sloppy deaths are just like they're a pain in the butt. So it just, to me, I felt like a lot of the deaths were a little sloppy. And in talking about last week and mentioning, that, Kim Coates did some elevation there, and he wasn't in this episode until like the last like minute, a minute or two.
Yeah.
I think his presence was lacking. So I'm looking forward to getting some more of him next week, and hopefully getting some more meaty storyline. The one thing too that I struggle with is, oh god, man, Herschel, just like the Herschel stuff and the Ginny stuff are like, to me, are just they're boring. Like, I'm not, the time that we're spending on this, like Herschel having a connection with Adama and stuff like that, it's felt kind of like it's weak. It's like some of the weakest parts of the story. So there was a lot of that this week, so it's possible like next week we could not cover that stuff at all, so it would just elevate the episode even higher, based on that. So not my favorite one. There are some, like I said, there are some scenes. When we get to them, we'll talk about some of the stuff that I did enjoy and some of the issues I had here and there. But yeah, thumbs down for Diana.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
I think after last week, I also had high expectations, which is another thing. So, and like you said, I may need to temper my Last of Us expectations and work on that. But even without missing Last of Us, that to me I felt like it just fell short in a lot of areas. But there's still potential for it to grow. You know what I mean? Like last week's episode was really, really good, and it has the potential to get right back to where it was. So I'm still hopeful. Yeah. So let's get into some of the details of the episode. But first, before we get into our individual points, we're going to discuss the episode description. And that's your job, man. So have at it.
All right. Well, this week's episode is being brought to you by... Are you looking for a unique New York City dining experience? Are you tired of the same old rat-on-a-stick cuisine? Well, why not try the Cafe in the Park? At the Cafe in the Park, we offer you the finest of old-world dining. And by old world, we mean really old, like the 1800s. You'll enjoy our fresh, basic cooking with that classic candlelight ambience. And if you're looking for that extra romantic dinner, you can request to be seated in the box. Your privacy will be assured. Trust us, no one will hear you, even if you're pounding on the door. And our outdoor patio dining is second to none, with our raging bonfire to light up your night, and to top off the evening, of course, our house band, the Foragers, will be there to perform the song they're known for. So try Cafe in the Park today. And remember, you're welcome to stay and enjoy your meal nice and quiet. But when it's time to go, you go, and you never come back. Like we never existed, 'cause we don't. So wow, I think you and I should get a reservation, right?
Yeah, it depends. I'm not a big lover of like the rat as my meal. So hopefully that's not on the menu. So we'll have to see. And as long as I'm not a fan of the music that they're gonna have. I'm not a big fan of the Moni music. It's just not my style.
The Moni Monis, they're great. What are you talking about? Come on, the Foragers are a classic New York group. I'll tell you. Yeah. Anyway, it had to be done, people. Had to be done. All right.
Had to be.
So the episode, again, we are reviewing this week is episode 2.5, and the title is The Bird Always Knows. And the description that we have is as follows. Negan makes some big moves, while Maggie takes matters into her own hands. That's it, people. So if you can't tell from that description what happens in this episode, I don't know what else to say.
It's so descriptive. I mean, it
really.
I can't even tell you how detailed that feels to me. It's wonderful.
And, hey, those were big moves that Negan made. Okay, big moves, people. So.
And I'm not gonna lie, matters into her own hands. Where?
What? And like Maggie, she never does that.
Yeah. Just as usual, lots and lots of detail there. Thanks a lot.
Yes, so much detail, so much. All right, so our writer and director is we get a little of the old and a little of the new. Okay. So this time around, I'll just start with the director because the director for this week is the same director for the last 2 weeks, which is Edward Ornelas. Or it's pronounced Ornelius, I'm not sure. And we've talked about him a couple times so far. Long, got a ton of credits. starting in from like the year 2000 up to today. So like the last like 20, 25 years, the dude's been working in TV. And of note, unfortunately for everyone, he did direct an episode of Fear the Walking Dead, and it was a 7.14 Divine Providence, which is the second to last episode of season 7. And it's not good, but he did direct it. So and then our writer for this week is a gal named Sarah Nolan.
Okay.
And this is the only episode of The Walking Dead that she's ever written, so this is her first time here. And she also is not like an executive producer or a producer on the show or anything, which pretty much all the people that have written for this season are all people that are like Walking Dead, like they are attached to the show in some way other than they were hired to write an episode. And she is not. She's just apparently a freelancer they brought in. She has been a writer for a bunch of stuff on television in general. She has written episodes for the show The Americans, with Felicity, with what's her name from Felicity.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
She also wrote for a show called Beacon 23. She wrote for a show called Unstoppable, and she's written for a show called Extrapolations. And I am not familiar with any of those three shows, but she did write several episodes for The Americans, which is a show I'm familiar with. Carrie Russell. That's the girl. Carrie Russell, yes. And I believe the guy from season 1 of The Walking Dead who was in the CDC, the doctor in the CDC, he's in The Americans as well. So.
Oh, how cool. Nice.
Yeah, he's the FBI guy who lives next door to the Russian spies. It's a wonderful, delicious twist.
It is a good twist.
But anyway, that is your writer and your director, and we will have to see now if next week or the week after that if Ms. Cohen will show up as a director, because I was promised she was going to direct stuff.
It's gonna happen. Calm down.
All right.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right.
Anyway, there you go.
All right. So starting off the episode, we get this nice little cold open that shows the Croat choosing a fancy outfit to wear. It was funny because at first I put in my notes, I'm like, does he live in a menswear store? Or, did they keep it? It's in pretty impeccable shape,
Really is.
Yeah, so it's either a store that's still in, pristine shape from the apocalypse, or he does, live or stay there and has sort of gathered, items from the store and has made it all. It just all looks very, very crisp and pristine, so it was pretty cool. And while he's picking out his outfit and he's listening to Croatian music, of course, as usual, and where he finds these records, who knows? But then
New York Island. It's Manhattan, okay? There's more than one record shop.
I'm sure.
And as it has been established in other apocalyptic shows that we've just finished recently reviewing, record shops are always left intact in the apocalypse.
Correct, right. In fact, you should, if you're looking for a record, you just have to look for the record store, because it's just going to be right there, right?
Let's say a pristine guitar, all kinds of things are available at record shops.
All kinds of things
I know
that would drive Diana crazy.
I was gonna say all kinds of things that half of this show hated. So
yeah. So it's really sort of like a no pun intended, but it's kind of like window dressing for the point of the scene, which is, he's got his, all his lights on and he's playing the record player. So he's using his methane powered electricity to its fullest extent when downstairs there's a guard who's supposed to be guarding this electric substation. And he takes a cigarette break, steps outside, and is distracted by, there's a walker that goes by, and he ends up, there's some people who we don't know who they're affiliated with. They're kind of in the dark, and but there's people who mean to do bad things. You can tell that they're up to no good, and they sort of do they end up killing that guy, or they just knock him out? I can't even remember.
Oh no, they like throw an axe. Like he gets hit with an axe in his like shoulder neck, and they drag him away. He sure looks dead.
Yeah, that's not a good sign. But the point is that they get rid of the guard, and they go into, this sort of substation part of the building, this like basement where all of these electrical panels are, and they find like the main, and they just cut it immediately, and all the power goes out where the Croat is, and that's the opener of the episode, is just the, and it's just made much more dramatic because, he's in the middle of like looking in the mirror and trying out this suit that he's putting on, and he's got the music playing on the record player in the background. So it's like when it shuts off, it's literally does the noise, which was really interesting. Yeah. What's funny is, I was sort of like, I had like a moment of sort of like spatial, dysmorphia, I guess, as you'd say, because it really felt like he was on a high floor, and I don't know why, but they're always on like some kind of high floor in this show. And
okay,
when the lights went off, then randomly there were a bunch of walkers that came to the window and banged on the window, and I was like, well, where did those come from? So two things. I guess he was on a more ground floor location, or near looking out on something that had walkers on it, whether it's like a courtyard or something like that. But we don't really get the details of that. It's because the windows are kind of like frosted and whatever. Excuse me. But why would the walkers come over when it's dark, as opposed to when he had the lights on and it could draw someone? I don't know. It felt like it didn't match like what was happening. But that was, no, I mean, it wasn't a huge deal, but I was just like, where did they come from? And why are they drawn to the darkness instead of the light?
I think, first of all, the walker that comes up to the window is the same one that is on the street that the guy taking the smoke break sees.
Oh, I didn't clock that. So,
yeah.
Well, yeah.
So that tells me that the store is on the ground floor.
Oh, okay.
The men's warehouse or whatever he's in. Yeah. And you're right. I mean, the whole thing of like, well, now you would, like you said, when the lights are on, you would think the walkers would be coming up to the glass to look in because the light would attract them. And yet this one kind of pops up very kind of like scary, moment of a horror show kind of thing.
Yeah, like a jump scare. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what it was. I mean,
yeah.
You're right. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. It was just a way to kind of have everybody go, oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's silly and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. You just got to kind of be like, yeah, okay, I get it.
Yeah, and it didn't like the scene still accomplished everything that it needed to accomplish. It was there to show him picking out his fancy suit and enjoying the fruits of his labor, which is the electricity, and then having it just like snatched right out from under him.
Oh my God, yes. What is up?
I know. Terrible. I have some thoughts though, since we're sort of there. You sort of bring it up later in the episode too, because they talk with Christos about it, but I don't think that Christos cut the power. I don't think his people did it.
No, of course not.
No,
I don't either. No, not at all. Why? What would be his motivation?
Right, and he looked he looked surprised later when they bring it up, and I think when he produces like that bone knife or whatever, which I mean that's whatever. They didn't show it being, you didn't see what was being used to do the cutting. I don't remember that part. And you could easily just have a bone knife in your pocket and go, hey, we found this right by there, and
the Croat finds it on the ground when he's there with the guys. Remember, they're like looking at it, trying to repair it, and that one guy who is on the Croats team kind of says, "Oh, you think that the something failed?" And he's like, "You made a mistake," and he like gets right in his face. And I'm just like, I was waiting for him to kill that guy, right? Just be like, okay, but he didn't. But anyway, right after that, he's over and he finds that the wires have been cut, and he's looking at him, and then he looks down, and like underneath that like fuse box, the knife, he picks the knife up. So, but to answer your question, no, I do not think Christos did it, particularly after Negan, first starts talking to Christos, and he makes it very apparent that he doesn't want anything to do with anybody.
Right.
Yeah. So why would he go stir things up? Where he's just like, look, we just want to be left alone. All right. We don't want to fight in the war. We don't want to be in an alliance. We don't do any of that stuff. We just want to kind of just eke out our own little existence. So that my money though, and I know you kind of think it's, you think it's the Croat did it.
I think it's possible. I think, who you put down. Well, let's talk about who you think it is.
Yeah. See, I think it's Bruegel. I think it's Bruegel because he wants to eliminate another player from the board. Mm-hmm. And there's a line in there when Christos is talking about to Negan, and he says something like, we were foraged until there was nothing left to forage. And then Bruegel showed up and we could trade. And so we started doing that. And then the game started, and we started losing, and then the more we lost, the more we had to participate in the games to try and win it back. And he says we lost our food, our weapons, and eventually our home, because remember they were in the Met there for a while, and so that tells me that Bruegel has a bunch of his men's weapons already.
Oh yeah, that's that's interesting. Yeah.
So that it just makes way more sense, because you're right. You're absolutely right that when the Croat kind of storms into that meeting and throws it in Christos' face of like, you cut the power, he genuinely is like, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I believed him. I didn't think that he was lying. I thought, that guy clearly is like, whatever happened, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you go on with your theory though. What do you think about it? Why would you? What went off in your head that you said, "Oh, it's the Croat, so he can kill Christos"? I don't know. What were you thinking?
Exactly that. I think that it's possible that he could have been involved in some way, because then if you don't have to worry about overtures to Christos if you eliminate him, and like say all the people that were in that room with them were probably his higher ups, but there's probably a bunch of other people that are in their group that were not in that room that didn't get killed by the gas, and they could just take them on and say, join our Barazi, we'll take care of you, your leaders are gone, we can help you, so then they end up with an army and more people on their side, permanently, as opposed to like Christos would just help them and then go back to being on its own. You know what I mean?
Right.
They wouldn't be there. So I don't know. But he also just created a bunch of walkers that he can use to help fuel the city.
There is that, yeah. And I suppose there's also merit in that the in your theory, because the Dama, rips the Croat a new one.
Oh yeah.
Over the power going out, and so this, in his mind, it might be, he frames Christos and so it's not that he, made a mistake or didn't wire it right or whatever. It's like, no, it was sabotaged, and that guy did it, and I took care of it, or something.
Yeah.
So I could see that. I like I said, my first thought went to Bruegel, that he seems to be, it'd be something he would do.
Yeah. And he stands more to gain ultimately by creating the chaos that would surround this. You know what I mean? So that's definitely a truth. All right.
And I think because in the scenes for next week we see that Bruegel is, clearly offers Pearlie, like, hey, what if I gave you the methane? You know what I mean? So like, clearly Bruegel is not in, at least, he's not like gung ho like the Alliance because we got to defend the island. And, I mean,
Oh yeah, no.
he's seeing this as an opportunity to eliminate all of the other people that are standing in his way of like controlling the whole damn island.
Yeah, because that's his
And
ultimate goal. He just wants to be in
yeah,
charge of
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
Right. And if he can get the methane, cool. But if that's the price to eliminate the Croat and all of the Bruazzi and all that stuff, fine, that's cool. So anyway, when I add that into my thinking, that's why I'm thinking, yeah, my money. If we were to be placing a bet on this, I would definitely put my $2 on Bruegel being the guy that did that. But again, we'll have to see, right?
Yeah.
I'm guessing we will get an answer, but we'll have to see.
Yeah. So we have this moment where the power is cut, and then the very next scene we get is, she's not happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's happy at first when she's playing with a rat.
Yeah, but then when she finds out what's going on, she's not happy.
No.
And there's lots of really great lines in there. You included a great line, the exchange between Negan and the Dama about, his involvement ending and stuff like that, and then all of her. Then the Dama just had like 3 really great. You included 2 quotes, and I got a quote too. So, yeah, Negan's really concerned because, he feels like he was told to help with something, and he feels like maybe the goalposts keep moving. Like, if you do this, we'll get your family. We need one more thing if you can do this or whatever. So he gets nervous about them figuring this out, because she's like, all we need now is Christos, and his response to all of that is, once that happens, you don't need me anymore, right? And she, they have this whole thing where you included the line where he's like, that was the deal, and she says was being the operative word, and he says deal being the operative word, that's a great line.
Oh yeah. It's what I really like about the writing with the Negan Croat Dama stuff is you can see like Negan's thinking and how he's kind of coming together, because this scene opens and he wants to talk to the Dama, and he opens the door and sees that she's like playing with the rat in the maze and is talking to it and is like treating it like a cherished, pet, right? And just lavishing love and affection and everything. And he then steps back out of there like, all right, I don't want to get into this. And then the Croat shows up, and then they both knock on the door and go in, and then the scene starts. Okay, so we're already shown that Negan is aware that this woman really likes this stupid rat.
Yes.
Okay, which again is going to come into play, right?
Yes.
It's Chekhov's rat here.
Yeah.
And so then you're right. He brings up this idea of once Christos is in the fold, then I'm done, and my family is safe, and either I'm going to leave or at least that, you're not, they're going to be out of here. So, that what you're holding over me is going to end. And the Dama is, she's like channeling. It was funny because I was reminded of the sequence in The Empire Strikes Back when Lando Calrissian keeps asking Darth Vader, like, this wasn't the that wasn't part of the deal, and Vader's like, yeah, I'm altering the deal, just
pray I don't alter it further.
Yeah, right, you know what I mean? And it's sort of the whole thing where it's like, see, you made a deal with the devil, and now the devil is changing all of the terms, and you're kind of you have no choice, right? Now Negan didn't even make the deal. The deal was kind of pushed on him,
right? But
in any case, he's like you said, he's starting to get the sense that, it's never going to be over. And the Dama even says that, because she says something like, I just think it's such a shame that you've worked so hard to get us here, that I think you should be able to enjoy the spoils of your labor, right?
Right.
And I think at that moment, that's when Negan kind of realizes that she's never going to let him go.
Right.
That she's going to hold the family over him forever and just keep, one more thing. Now you got to do this. Now you got to do this. And so at that point, when she says that, and he has that whole exchange, of, she said was being the operative word, and he goes deal being the operative word. At that moment, he's like, yep, Dama got to go.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's never going to end. She's going to keep moving that goalpost, like you were saying.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No matter
always.
What. Yeah.
Right. And so, and I think, up till this point, I think Negan is listening to the little Rick Grimes on his shoulder that is saying, you have to be a better person and, not resort to what old Negan would do. And you know what? She gave you a deal. You should honor it and live up to it and then move on. And I think he's been trying to do that. And all the while resisting all the temptations that the Croat is throwing at him to go back to being the old Negan. Right? And yet now he's gotten to the point where he's like, Rick, buddy, I really tried. I really tried to see this through and not kill everybody, but the only way I'm getting out of this is if I kill everybody. I mean, I literally think that's where he's at. And so right at that moment, that's when he starts planning, how he's going to set up the Croat and the Dama and get them to, I think best case scenario, kill each other, but acceptable scenario, one of them will be eliminated one way or the other. So it was a fun scene, and like you said, it keeps going because the Dama. This is sort of like they gave the Dama some really delicious stuff to do here, knowing that this was her last day on the set.
And we just didn't know. We're like, these are some great final words, but we didn't know at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, because I wrote down the next thing where she's talking about, I think she's talking about their deal with Bruegel, and she says something like, boundaries were established, dicks were measured.
Which is such a great way to put that scene to describe what they've done so far. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Well yeah. It's great, and what's great is I included too when they were talking about like her plans with Negan, and yes, he comes to his agreement. He comes to the realization in his head that he's gonna have to do something drastic because she's gonna, like we're saying, we keep moving the goalposts. But she's like, oh, just do this. If you can bring Christos, then you'll be done. And he was like, and he doesn't believe her because he's no dummy. And she's like, I swear. She's like, I pinky swear. She goes, pinky toe swear. And I'm like, oh my God.
She could do it with Herschel's toe.
Because she has it. She can swear.
Right, she do.
I swear on the pinky toe of my former captive. And that's really great.
Yes. See, you can trust me. The toe. I got the toe.
Yeah. By the power of the toe.
And then after that, then she kind of like we were saying, she kind of rips into the Croat about the whole power outage and how does this make us look, and now we're appearing weak and unorganized, and this is not the aura we want to present to all of these factions that we've got on our side, and just and he's kind of like, we're gonna figure it out, and the at that point, they don't know that the guy that was on the smoke break is dead. They're just like, he abandoned his post, but we're gonna find him and we'll figure it out. And she's like, no, that's not good enough, and is really like berating him, and basically says, you get out there and you fix this, and make sure it never happens again. And I wrote this down because then before he leaves, she goes, and change out of that ridiculous outfit. You look like a bellhop. And he did. He's like, when he was in the store in the first scene, he tries on this like what would you say, like red or like crimson suit.
It definitely had. It was stylish. It was very modern looking, but it had like a little bit of like a shine to it. It was kind of shiny, but it was red. And when she said you look like a bellhop because the majority of the color is red, it's like, she's not very wrong there.
Right. Yes. She's definitely like, and as soon as she said that, I'm like, yeah, he does. I would go with that. Yeah, that's good. X gets the square there. Yeah. So.
Acceptable description of the outfit for sure.
Yes. Yeah. So now Negan is going to go try and close the deal with Christos, and the other thing I think that Dama says is that Negan goes by himself.
Yes,
and she doesn't want the Croat to be there and like muck it up.
Yeah, and so just creating more, I sensed it in the last episode. There's like division there, and I was like, I wonder if they're gonna really play into that next weekend. Oh yeah, did they?
Oh boy,
yeah, because it's the one little sort of like vein of pain that Negan can exploit. And he does it.
Yes.
He just starts moving all chess pieces to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then from there we jump back to the cafe in the park.
Yeah. And it's not the stupidest plan that's ever come about, but it's pretty big, Maggie comes back and she's like, where is everybody? And Narvaez is like, they've all been, Roxana was captured based on like, non-compliance or whatever. Like she's taken them all like into custody, basically.
It's exactly what I thought was going to happen last week when I'm like, Pearlie, really? You're going to leave the woman in charge there who like her great idea was to take over the place? Yeah. And I think what happens is Pearlie and Maggie and Herschel they come back, and as they walk in, like the soldiers come out and like arrest them right there, and like so like all their stuff's taken away, and they're kind of like, and of course Pearlie's like, what the hell's going on? And she, Narvaez is like, we don't have to follow your orders anymore because you lied about Negan.
Yeah.
And, what'd she say? Like, we gave you a hero's welcome, and, and now it turns out none of it's true. So, yeah, and literally she's, like, taking over the cafe, right? Yeah. And is like, because she still has this crazy plan of, like, they're going to get the methane somehow. With the 10 people she has,
Yeah. And it's funny, too, because, like, they're trying to, like, sort of angle their way out of, being captured or whatever. And Pearlie eventually is like, listen, I did let him go, but here's the thing. He told us where the methane is. And the only person he trusts out of us is Maggie. And we can use that. He knows more. We can use that information and da-da-da-da. And, Pearlie gives us all away, figuring like, you need us. And, Narvaez is like, okay, so yes, I do need you, but I'm going to take both of those information things and put them right in Maggie. And we're going to be like,
yes,
and there's this great moment where she asks, can he be trusted of Negan to have said, he gave them the location. So do you trust that that's the location? And Herschel's like, yeah, I trust him.
Yeah.
And then, and Ginny says no, right? She doesn't think so, or she doesn't say anything.
Ginny doesn't
right?
say. She does. No, she doesn't. But what Herschel says, yes, we can trust him, and Narvaez is why, and he says because I think Negan thinks he owes Maggie.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I think at that point Narvaez had learned that Negan had killed Herschel's dad.
Yeah.
And so she knew about that dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but Ginny doesn't say anything. Although Maggie like asks Ginny like, why are you doing this? And Ginny is pissed at Maggie because Maggie didn't tell Ginny that she knew Negan was still on the island or something. And remember, Maggie's like, well, the reason I didn't tell you that is that I found you had a gun in your stuff, and I just couldn't help wonder who you might want to use that on.
It's a valid thing to be afraid of. Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So the big, Narvaez, to her credit, she gets this information about Negan and knowing where the methane is, and he only trusts Maggie, and she's like, great, so here's what you're going to do. So her plan is to send Maggie to surrender to them, and then she's like, we'll surrender if you, get us off the island safely, escort us off the island,
She wants Maggie to bring the Croat and Negan back to the cafe so they can give them safe passage off the island.
Yes.
And then Maggie's like, and then you're going to ambush them.
And she's like, and this is actually pretty smart. She's like, basically she's not going to do anything. She's like, no, we're going to lead them across the tall grass, and the dead will do my work for me. And that's pretty good. So, that's
I disagree. I thought it was the dumbest. I mean, that was right up there with the invasion plan.
Right.
Not that you couldn't ambush somebody in the tall grass, but just the idea that Negan and the Croat are like, sure, we'll come back here, and follow you into this tall. And it's like, no, they would. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, the reasoning, like trying to get Negan and the Croat back there, but getting rid of like any of her. She doesn't have to feel bad, like, about killing a bunch of people, slaughtering them so they can get off the island. They're going to just, like, let the dead do the work for them. Like, that's, I don't want to say that's genius, but it's, it's, fairly smart of her to, like, so get rid of the, responsibility, as it were. It'll be sort of taken care of without her even needing to do anything, So it's a nice way to get out of... It's a nice way to sort of get out of having to do anything, but ultimately, like, the plan itself is not great.
Yeah. Like I said, I think the idea of using the tall grass is a good idea, I suppose. Although, don't you think that Negan and the Croat know that the tall grass is not? You know what I mean? Like, we've already been given this little tidbit about Central Park as like it's this no man's land that nobody goes into, and yet you're going to expect these two people to suddenly go in there? No. I mean, don't. What happens if Maggie goes and makes this pitch, and they're like, okay, well, you lead all of your people to the edge of the park.
Yeah,
and then we'll escort you out.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, so, you know what I mean? It's just, like I said, I think it was a poor plan because there's too many ways for Negan and Croat to outsmart her on it, and it just kind of goes along with a lot of dumb plans that this group has had since the show started this season. So
I mean, generally speaking, I haven't liked any of the New Babylon storyline. I don't consider them like a scary foe. Like, they're not like a big bad in any way. They're not so they're not intimidating, not to me, and they don't like, so it's like, why do these people feel like they have to do anything? The people living at the bricks where Maggie was, they were quote unquote saved by the people in New Babylon, but you don't really get a lot of that detail. You don't see that, and then you see these guys that are like not great warriors in the lead, and you're like, okay, why do you feel some sort of need to, I don't know. They've never seemed menacing or just in power in any way. It's kind of, it kind of reminded me of Ginny. Yes, thank you. Yeah. It felt very much like...
I think you mentioned that in episode 1. When we reviewed episode 1, I think you said that they were kind of channeling their inner Ginny there, and I think I had some sort of seizure remembering Ginny. Like, so thank you for that.
You're welcome. I'm here to help. I mean, because the Ginniness of it is, she just, it's that was part of the ridiculousness of that character, was that there was no menace involved. There were no stakes. You didn't feel like there was any. So they've just continued that with this this group, the New Babylon, a different show and different whatever, but it's the same feeling with them. So, Narvaez comes up with this plan, and of course it's going to be stupid, because there's no thought process, there's no layers to the characters and things like that. So it's a shame. But hey, now she's got a reason to, leave and then try and come back.
That's true. And Maggie's like, okay, I will do this stupid plan of yours. And then she leaves, and then she immediately sneaks back in, kills a couple of the guards, and opens the door to where we find out that Pearlie has been taken, and I'm going to use air quotes here, to the box.
Yeah.
And which is like the freezer or something, right?
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah, and he's in there with Roxana, and I was really curious. I'm like, Maggie, why did you go and try and like open the door where he is if you were just gonna lock him in? So I didn't understand that scene at all.
I didn't either. I didn't at all.
When she opens it up and it's almost like, oh, okay, you're gonna bust him out of jail, and he does the whole thing of like telling her, if you do this, like the New Babylon is gonna come after you and kill you and blah blah blah, and then she says like, well, then I'm not gonna let him find out, and then she locks him back in, and then she leaves, and then he's pounding on the door like. And I'm like, what was the point of that?
Yeah, it was pretty dumb.
It was very dumb, yeah. But before that happens, we do get a scene of Pearlie and Roxana, and they're kind of enjoying their time in the box because, as the ad said, it's a very romantic, spot in the cafe by the park, and he basically is like, she asked him if he has kids, and he says yeah, and then he says like they're gonna find out I died a traitor, and he's basically like, I'm done, I don't have any choice here, but you still have options. You can join the New Babylon, and they'll let you out of here, and you'll live. And she tells the story about which includes the title of the episode, where she had this uncle who had this little bird, and the bird would pull out. He had this like little like bag, little material bag full of like riddles, and the bird would pull out a riddle, and whichever one it pulled out, it was meant for them. And he basically says, yeah, okay, I get it, that you're totally fine if they kill you, but you'll be dying for nothing. Yeah. And I wrote this line down because she then tells what I thought was a really great story. Like the bird and the riddles, I didn't really. I swear I'm like, I don't understand what is she trying to say.
Yeah, I said the same thing.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's whatever the writer thought she was saying, the metaphor, I didn't get it. So if anyone out there has a theory, please let me know, because I was like, I watched it, and I watched this scene multiple times. I don't get it, but I really like the next bit that Roxana did when she talks. She tells the story of like that uncle. We found out that Roxana's she's from Iran.
Okay.
And she's talking about back in the 1980s, Iraq invaded Iran, and they were in this really bloody war for almost the entire decade of the 1980s, which is why the United States became like very like friendly to Saddam Hussein, because they were fighting the Iranians and we hated the Iranians. Right. So it was like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of a thing.
Yes.
And then of course, at the end of the 80s, going into the 90s, then Saddam Hussein thought that, well, the U.S. is my buddy, so I can invade Kuwait and they won't care. And of course, we did have a big deal with it.
That's not true. We did care about it.
we really did, yeah, and so on. But anyway, she tells the story about that, about how, and she says, when Iraq invaded, my uncle, he was conscripted and sent to fight in a war he knew nothing about and had nothing to do with. And I remember the morning he left, the sun hadn't even come up yet. That was dying for nothing. And it's just, it totally sums up exactly the situation she's in, that if they join New Babylon, then they're going to have to go off and fight this stupid war that New Babylon wants to fight against the Croat. Right. And that would be dying for nothing. Yeah. That would be a waste. Yeah. And I really like that. I thought that was a really cool moment for her.
Yeah, I got hung up on the story about the bird and whatever, and I liked the Iraq war allegory like you did. But the bird thing, I was just like, ugh, this scene. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
and then like the next bit, like when, because it comes back to them and like before they get taken out to the courtyard where she gets hung, she like pulls out this like little bag and she's like pick one, and it's like a rock, a shiny rock. I'm sure your wife would be able to identify which one it is, what kind of rock. But and she's like, oh, that's a good one. And then she tells him, something like about how, this old man he comes up to a fork in the road, and one fork leads back to his home, and one fork leads into the unknown, and he has enough life in him for one more adventure. What does he do? Does he go back? And because he thinks it'd be nice to sleep in his old bed and wear his old clothes, but maybe his home has changed and it won't be the same feeling as it was because he's so much older. Right. Or maybe he should take the adventure, but who knows what's going to be on that road? There could be bandits and all this stuff. Right. And she's doing this whole thing, and Pearlie's looking at her like, okay, I get what you're saying. And then she says, like, and sometimes it helps the bird if the bird gets a hand, and she takes like all the other rocks out of the bag, and they're all the same thing, Right. And I'm like, what is that? What is that supposed to mean?
Yeah,
so
I was
that
so
like
confused.
The bird's a con artist? Yeah. So yeah, all that stuff I didn't get. I don't understand. I'm like, okay, I really like this actor playing Roxana, but I don't get it.
I mean, there could be something sort of contextually there, because the rock that she's holding, it looks to me like it's fool's gold, which is the one that's like, it looks like it's gold, but it's just not. And that's what it looks like to me. So Right. It's like, is that like part of the metaphor with the, the little jokes and the bird picking up the right thing and whatever? And I don't know, because it'd be different if she had a bag full of little jokes in it, wouldn't it have? Because it would have related to the story. But her little bag of, fool's gold, what does that have to do with anything? It just didn't. It didn't make any sense to me. Yeah.
I didn't get it either. I mean, I guess I understood like the message she was telling Pearlie of, basically you're the person in this story that you have a choice to make right now. You can either go along with New Babylon and go back to the way things are or were, or you can, resist New Babylon and kind of forge your own way. But both have advantages and both have disadvantages to do, so you have to decide. I kind of got that, but Right. Yeah, all that stuff, the rest of it, I'm like, huh?
Yeah. Like the story is not the story, but like what she's trying to tell him comes through, but her methods in doing it, like her, the bird and the papers, and then the bag and the rocks and whatever,
and the fool's gold.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
It just didn't connect together very well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well.
All right. So anyway, we cut away from that, and now we get Negan and Christos.
Oh, this was a good scene, because it's got two very distinct parts, You've got
Oh God, yeah.
Negan showing up, all a bluster, like, we're gonna, we're here, and he even brought like the canisters, so he's got that. And Christos is really very, like, practical about it. Why would I join you? Why would I help you? It makes no sense, And he's like, you embarrassed me in front of my men. Like, I'm gonna reward that by joining your cause, which makes no sense, And it really looked, he's like, and now I love the line where he's like, but what's different here? He's like, you're not at your pulpit, and you don't have your, you don't have the your bat, and you don't have whatever. So he's like, how were you gonna try and get me to go along with your stuff if all of this stuff is, you're missing all of these other parts of the argument, as it were. And it looks bad for Negan for a minute there. You're like, oh
boy, it really does.
Yeah, he's gonna get in trouble here
when,
and get like smacked around a little, I think.
Well, when Christos like has the bat,
yes,
and is like, indicating he gonna use it on Negan,
yes.
you're kind of like, this is gonna be bad, and I mean, literally the scene, like, talk about a paradigm shift. I mean, when the two little girls,
oh yeah,
like, run into the room, it's like all the air in the balloon gets let out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and for both of them, because Christos has to kind of deal with his kids.
Right.
And of course, we all know Negan and kids, right?
Yes.
That's his kryptonite. I mean, he just is like, yeah, kids are like special cases. You don't hurt kids, doesn't matter. No, that they don't deserve it. They're not, all that. And yeah, I mean, literally when that scene ended and like his wife comes in and gets them and they leave, and I even wrote down the line, because Negan is like, I think there's been a misunderstanding.
Mm-hmm.
I did not realize the situation you were in, and clearly you have people you're trying to protect, and that changes things.
Right.
And then I think I didn't write it down, but he adds like, I can relate.
Yes.
And I think that
yeah.
like that's the common ground that he and Christos find.
Right. Yeah, and that's a really great moment there. And he doesn't make it. Here's the thing: everybody's fighting for something, and you have to assume that maybe there's like families, but to have the family be so deeply connected to him, and they're so young, and he's in. Any other time, it would affect Negan, but I think he's extra sensitive to it right now because he's so nervous about Annie and Joshua, and so he's very on edge about it, and because of the stuff with the Dama moving the goalposts and changing the terms that were, so he's in a really sensitive place about all of that, to be fair. So Christos changes, Negan changes in that moment, and the pivot it's literally a 180. And the scene after that, where they're talking about where Christos comes down and they talk on the same level, and when Christos is like, you've got to understand, like, what we went through, Bruegel, we've been scavenging. I like that his speech also had to do with like the length of the apocalypse. He's like, I've been scavenging for like 15 years, so after a while you start to run out of stuff, and they're on an island, so that makes it even worse. So, we've been scavenging for all these years, and then Bruegel comes along and he starts doing these little games, and, we figure this is smart because, instead of, we can trade things. And so we think that our, not aligning with Bruegel, but dealing with him, having business dealings with him seems, smart to a degree. And so they did that, and they start working with Bruegel to a degree, and then Bruegel starts doing these games, with the all or nothing and betting this, that, and the other. And he's like, and we lost our weapons, we lost our food, we lost our home, and so there's so much more on the line, and now Negan knows the tack to take. If you don't join the Dama, not only will you still have to deal with Bruegel, but you're also now you're going to have to deal with, like, the Brazi and the Dama are going to come for you at some point. Maybe not now because they're busy, but at some point they will. And then if the Dama and, if she falls, maybe it's New Babylon that tries to come for him. So his thing that he tried to do to appeal to Christos was to say, listen, you do this. You don't have to be, you don't have to support the cause. Like, you don't have to be anyone's friend, pretty much. But if you help, it'll give you a bigger seat at the table. So he's basically offering him, you feel like you've lost a lot of your power and a lot of your your metaphorical seat at the table because of the things that Bruegel's been able to take, you could earn back some of that just by a little bit of goodwill, a little bit of helping, I thought the thing that I thought was really interesting in this scene, and I'm wondering if you had this thought as well, was here's this guy who's describing we're just trying to get by, and we're just trying to do right by our families and our people here, and you're starting to run out of resources, so you enter into these trade agreements with people, and then you end up losing all of your things because now you have to bet more things to try and get the things you lost before, and it's just this never-ending cycle of you double or nothing and then you lose everything. I was curious when I was watching this. All I could think about was the fact that Negan knows that Bruegel not only won those things, but he cheated them out of those things,
right?
Because he knows that his champion is a cheat.
Tony.
Yeah.
Right,
so
yeah.
Did
the games were rigged?
Yeah. Did that cross your mind at all while he was talking to Christos?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and out of everybody that we've met on the island, that is like the people in charge, right? Christos is the only guy that really you sense has any honor.
Yes.
And is a decent guy, right? Which is not how when we're first presented to him, he's kind of a hothead, and at the meeting in the church, you're kind of like he's very punkish, right? The way he disrespects Negan and blah, 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 and then he gets shocked and all that stuff. And then when they actually sit down and Negan actually is talking to him, I think Negan realized, you know what, this guy, he's the guy who's the best out of all of these people.
Yes.
And if Negan were to ever save any one of these people, it would be him.
Yes.
Which I think is ironic because almost immediately after that moment, when you can see that they're gonna come to an agreement, right? Christos is gonna say, okay, I'll join the alliance. I will support the cause, like you said, even though I'm not enthusiastic about it and I don't like any of these people. I understand that we have to do this, and it'll be beneficial for me in the long run, because if I help, I will get a seat at the table, all that stuff.
Right.
Just before they do that, the Croat shows up and, as you said, messes it all up.
I went to go look at my notes again because I'm like, did I say messes it all up or did I say fucks it all up? And you just didn't want to curse, but I did say messes. It's very odd for me. I didn't F-word my way through it. It was such a terrible moment when the Croat came in because. And again, I'm invested because the Christos stuff was actually some of my favorite stuff in the episode. I felt like a real loss there when the Croat did what he did, and he eliminates Christos and the soldiers that are in the room. Whether or not that turned out to be his whole group, that's hard to say. But he definitely got rid of the top soldiers that are a part of Christos's group for sure. But it's that alliance that was starting to build underneath because that Negan is playing the Dama and the Croat against each other. And in that moment while he's with Christos, in my head I was like, you see something forming in your head where you're like, okay, if he can effectively get the Dama and the Croat fighting against each other, and if he can just dispatch Bruegel in some way, then could Christos not be the leader of Manhattan eventually if you get all those other chess pieces out of the way? So I saw that, I had that thought in my head, and I was like, oh, this could be, because he's fighting for something more. He doesn't want power. He wants to take care of his people. And that's a better, people fight harder for the people they love than they do when they're fighting for power. They just will. And so I just had this sort of positive thought. I was like, well, it's, you could, I saw this image in my head of Negan leaving the island and leaving it in care of Christos or whatever. And then 10 seconds later it's smashed, that whole thought, So not only was I, because the Croat drives me bananas because he's just such a he thinks he's got all this power and influence, but then he's like, how Negan says, he's treated like the redheaded stepchild by the Dama. So he's really subservient in a lot of ways, even though he acts like he has power. So he's not a character that I enjoy, but mostly because of the things he does. I mean, I love the actor. He's doing a great job. But in that moment, I really hated him because I was like, you had this image of like what a future state could be, once they get rid of the threat of New Babylon and all that. But it just was such a downer, to go from this real high moment with Negan and Christos and then just have like the Croat like dash it apart. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he comes in and Negan's like, yeah, I think we found some common ground. And the Croat's like, how could there be common ground when one person is disrespectful to the other? Or whatever he says, right?
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, no. It's just...
He's about to muff this up,
like,
yeah.
Well, Negan, like, it's like putting his head into his hand into his head, like, oh god, and just like, like rubbing his eyes, like, oh no, please stop,
Yeah.
And then we find out that the Croats men have like opened the valves of the methane, and the room has slowly been filling up with methane gas. It seems to me methane has got a very distinctive odor to it, so I find it hard to believe that none of these people are like, what's that smell? But okay, whatever, who knows? This is special, Walker methane, so maybe it don't smell weird. But yeah, they all kind of start, passing out and wobbly and all that, and after they all hit the floor, the Croat and his guys put on gas masks and they drag Negan out of there, and then like we see like the Croat's men are like braining all of these passed out guys on the floor.
Yeah.
And the Croat like bends down in front of Christos, and like we see him like stabbing his neck or his face or something, and you don't really see what he's stabbing, but he's clearly doing something.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, they just, all those guys were either about to die from the gas, but they like killed them all anyway, with their weapons. And so, damn, I mean,
yeah, it was pretty brutal.
Oh yeah. And then of course the Croat comes out and Negan's recovering in the car, and the Croat's like, I spared the women and children because I know you, and that would, you're a big women and children guy. And I'm just like, man, dude, remember Negan tried to kill you once.
He could do it again.
You know what I mean? Yeah, it's just like you are just playing with fire with him. It's just like eventually he's just gonna lose it on you and take you out, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that scene was that's the first death where I'm like, wow, they wiped out Christos. Just gone. Christos is gone. Okay, well, all right. That's interesting. I didn't necessarily see that coming. I thought they were gonna at least all pretend to be in the alliance and then play the games and try and manipulate and go from there,
right?
But I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. So that's one down, right? And then the episode jumps back to the cafe, and Navarez is going to because Maggie comes in and she pulls a knife on Navarez and is going to kill her,
right?
And then Jenny comes in and points a gun at Herschel.
Yes.
And so Maggie has to surrender, and so now Narvaez is like, well, okay, now we're gonna hang a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
And as opposed to just one or two, now it's gonna be like 3. And so they take them all outside, and all of the forager people are there, and we see the gates are locked, and there's a whole bunch of walkers that are pushing up against the gate, kind of looking on, right?
Yeah.
And they string up Roxana first, and she's, Narvaez is like, do you have any last words? And she's like, where I'm going is where we're all going, and she's kind of telling her people like, don't sweat it, and it's gonna be fine, and like Narvaez like kills her before she even finishes her last words.
Yep.
You know what I mean? She's like, yeah, I heard enough of this. But I mean, I gotta say, boy, the character of Roxana, I mean, that woman is just so chill on the whole dying thing.
Yes.
And I mean, I understand and I appreciate, like, she's like a true believer.
Right.
That and not like in a weird culty way, but just in sort of like death is not the end of the journey kind of way.
Right.
And that look, it's something we're all going to do it. It's all going to happen to all of us, and it's normal, and we shouldn't be afraid of it. And it's not going to be the end. There's something beyond that and all that. But I mean, oh my God, that woman is just like, oh, let me help you put my neck in the noose. Oh, yeah, I'll jump off by myself. I mean, she was just like, really? There's no fear there at the final moment? I mean, yeah, I don't know. Did you believe that? Or were you kind of like, really?
No, I didn't. And it was a shame because, we talked in other episodes that, like, the prospect of the Forgers felt interesting, and Roxana's group and her at the helm, here was this, she wasn't a crazy person who was the head of a group. She wasn't interested in power. She was just kind of like Christos. She was just wanting her people to be able to live in peace and quiet, and that's why they lived in the park, because they were guarded by the walkers that are out there in the tall grass, and we were looking forward to possibly getting some more with this group and expanding a little bit, and that just didn't happen because she gone and they're all gone. But the thing that I thought was weird to me was when she was as soon as they started getting her up on the chair and getting the noose ready for her, and she's trying to calm her people down because they start doing the moaning thing, and she's like, it's okay. And she's like, I'm only going to where we'll all be going. It, like, her tone, her tone totally made me want to go, step into the light. All are welcome in the light. And I was like,
Carol Ann.
Yeah,
Carol Ann, walk into the light.
Right into the light. Part of me was like, did she rehearse this speech? Did she have it like in her back pocket? Like, I've got this speech in my back pocket for just in case there's some crazy group that finds us and ends up like trying to kill us or whatever. I have this motivational speech, just like, it's just ready. It's in my back pocket, and I've got it ready for whenever this happens. Because she was like Johnny on the spot.
She was
with
ready,
the
man.
motivational speech,
Ooh,
man.
She was.
She knew what she needed to say. It didn't really work because all they did was continue the moaning, which startled the walkers. I feel like
kind of stirred them up.
It did. It stirred them up. But I think what was great was instead of focusing on the walkers and like sending some people over to the gates and shoring up the gates anymore, or not doing the thing that drives me nuts that people don't do anymore, which is just take out your damn knife and kill like the first 20 that are at the front of the gates or whatever,
right?
And create a little border there or something. But they weren't paying attention to them because the moaning thing was very distracting, and it's kind of eerie and strange and a little off-putting. And so they're doing that, and they're riling up the walkers, and Narvaez is like, okay, quiet them down. And she sends like one soldier over and like smacks one of them in the nose with the butt of their gun.
Right in the face. Yeah.
And that is like, the rest of them are just watching, and they're like, oh, okay, that just happened to our friend, but we're just gonna continue, right? So they continue on with the moaning. But the other thing is, it is riling up the walkers, but because what they're doing is distracting, the New Babylon people aren't paying attention to the walkers. They're paying attention to the foragers because this is very alien behavior, and their moans are kind of covering up the usual walker noises. And so there's this whole like din of sound that's happening, and then when the walkers finally break through the gate, it's too late, because everybody's paying attention to everything but the walkers, and then the walkers come in and they just start attacking the foragers, and the foragers are like, I'm ready to go where all have been, or where we're all going to end up. So her speech sort of put them at ease to the point where they're like, I'm okay with dying. And they all just sort of stood there, which was fine. But in that moment, the New Babylon people, they like were overtaken very easily. And I feel like I wish there had been like a little bit more fight to them, only because then it would have contrasted more with what the foragers had decided to do. The foragers had decided to just stand there. The New Babylon people had weapons, and they just stood there in a lot of instances. They were just like, oh, walkers, oh, I will hit you with my, oh, I'm dead. You know, like that's basically what happened with all of them. And there's this one scene, and it's when, like, because they hang Roxana, and then they get her off of there and take her away, and then they're like, okay, Maggie, you're next.
Maggie,
and
you're next.
And they get her up there, and once the walkers break through, they haven't done it yet, but once the walkers break through and sort of all hell breaks loose, there's a walker that, like, knocks over the chair, so Maggie falls, and there's and everybody's sort of like, the people that are close to her kind of go into action. But Pearlie has this moment, which I was laughing at, because he's wrapped up with like the most weird looking ropes I've ever seen. They look like real rope, but they're really new kind of looking. I don't know, whatever. So he's got like some rope wrapped around his wrists or whatever, and he can't get away because like someone still has a gun on him, I guess. But that's the part of the scene that I hated, was the New Babylon people appeared to still have their weapons on our crew. So they weren't able to, like, Pearlie was like 10 steps away from Maggie, but he didn't do anything because I guess maybe someone had a gun on him, and I couldn't really tell, but he was like hesitant, so I assume so. And then he was like trying to get rid of a walker, and he just like lightly pushed it out of the way. He didn't like slam it to the ground. Like, yes, his wrists are tied, but he's a powerful, like, you know, like fighter. So it just felt like he wasn't like fighting very hard in that moment. And then so not only does the walker knock over the chair, and Maggie falls, and she's like gulp, because now I have a rope at my
right.
And so Ginny's there, and Ginny brains the ghoul that's in front of her with a knife, and then moves the chair over so that she's okay. But then, like, there's all this different, like, it's chaotic, you know, this whole walker attack, you know. Ginny's fighting with them, gets pulled aside, like, Navarez has actually grabbed Herschel at this point, and is holding him, and then she's, like, shooting this, that, and the other, and then she slowly starts to try and get away when she can see that, like, you know, Maggie has not been hung and is like on the verge of escaping, and you know, there's Pearlie and he's taking off his bonds and whatever, and she starts to like move away and take Herschel with her, and she's going through like this crowd of walkers, and like they're fine, they're just like, oh look, humans, oh she pushed me, oh more humans, oh she pushed me. And it wasn't until the very end that one walker comes out of nowhere and is actually able to get her on her neck. And it's Roxana's ghoul, which was hilarious.
It is. But yeah, I mean, she gets knocked over. A couple ghouls finally get her. Yeah. And I think Herschel kind of spins away, and so she's off balance, and she gets knocked to the ground. And then, the Roxana ghoul comes up and takes a big chunk out of her neck.
Yeah, to me, I felt like the scene was chaotic. Sometimes good, but mostly it felt like it was chaotic bad. But I felt like, to me, it felt like here are these like character deaths, which you were, I agree, like it's good to get character deaths because it sort of refreshes the show, it makes you see like nobody's safe and all of that stuff, and I appreciate that. But to me, I felt like the whole plan that they had of like hanging Maggie and like this whole scene was so like ill conceived by Navarez that like the rest of it just wasn't a great scene to me. I didn't care for it. So.
Okay. I didn't mind it. There definitely were a couple of moments though where I was like, really? And the worst one for me is when Maggie finally gets the noose off of her neck and gets down off the chair and starts coming after Narvaez. There is a scene, and you can go back and watch, where it's like looking at Narvaez, and behind Narvaez there literally is a ghoul just standing there not doing anything. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? It's just sort of like looking around like, wow, check out, I'm on the Walking Dead City. This is pretty cool. I mean, so that was a little weird. But I got to tell you, when the gates open and the ghouls kind of pour in, right? Mm-hmm. And we should point out, this is not a big space that they're in.
Correct.
And yeah, there's like 20 of the Forager people, and their backs are to the gate, and so then like probably about 20, 30, 40 ghouls come in behind them, right? So I agree with you. It was very chaotic, and the New Babylon people, they were trying to shoot some of them, but I mean the ghouls just kind of overwhelmed them, I think, and they just they didn't you're right, they weren't very smart, but it was such a surprise. Oh my God! Not only are there ghouls here, there are like a lot of ghouls here, and so I think they kind of just got overwhelmed, but. When the ghouls first started coming up behind the Forager people, and of course they're still all doing the moaning thing, for just like a heartbeat, I thought, oh wow, are we gonna see like that, like the all of the ghouls that had their hearts ripped out that were part of this group, like do they remember that they were part of this group? And I thought for just a second they were going to just leave the Forager people alone and just go after the New Babylonian people.
Okay.
And I thought that would have been really cool.
Okay. Oh.
That they remember, like, these are our people, and they treat us with respect and all, and so we're gonna kill all those bad people over there. But they didn't. They just were ghouls and did what ghouls do. But for just a second there, I thought, wow, are they just gonna like, excuse us, pardon us, we have to get through here. Yes, don't mind us. We're just gonna.
These are our people.
Through, yeah, but yeah, the whole scene there when Maggie is kind of chasing after Narvaez and Herschel, and they're literally like there are ghouls there that are not trying to get either of them, and they're just like, I'm just trying to, excuse me, can you move out of the way? Yes, thank you. It was very, very. I understand that the setup, they're trying to make it chaotic and it's just people and ghouls fighting all over, but it was a little like, really, And this is not new. I mean, this happens all the time on these shows because, if the ghouls were to be and act the way that we know they act, people would die in these scenes, like major people. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's it's a story, right? And so Maggie has plot armor, so she's not going to die, and Narvaez isn't going to die right at that moment, and so we have to make the ghouls not act the way that they would, if it was a real situation and they were, hey, there's somebody I can eat, I'm going to eat you,
Right.
But I love the gag, the neck gag when I mean, that big chunk of flesh gets pulled and stretches from her neck and all that. That was really cool. So now we're up to 3 major deaths. So like, one major character, 2 minor characters, right? Yeah. All gone. And literally everybody in that in that cafe is now dead except for Pearlie, Maggie, Herschel, and Ginny.
Right.
Everybody else is dead,
yeah.
Right? And I know you had a question of is Ginny bit, because they like go into the cafe and kind of lock the doors and kind of barricade themselves in, and they're all kind of sitting on the floor, kind of like, wow, what do we do now, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And Ginny kind of pulls up her shirt and her jacket, and she's got this big wound on her side,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if you rewatch the episode, there's a bit where Ginny comes up to a ghoul, and the ghoul pushes her, and she falls back against this like piece of, it's like a wooden fence or something, and there's like
Okay.
a nail or something in it, and I think that's what injured her.
You think so? See,
Yeah,
I put the question mark. I just put, because it was part of the whole like, so this happened now, and on top of it, Ginny's bit.
Yeah,
that was more
yeah.
the energy. So it looked like a bite, but
It sure did.
but I understand, like, it could be something else. You know, they
Yeah.
could, you know, what's it
and-
called? They could, get their way out of it somehow if they wanted to.
And again, if you were to go back and watch it again, we do see Ginny, and she does get hurt, and she reacts to getting hurt, and she's like, and
Right.
so that's what I think that was. But you're right, when she lifts up her shirt, and and again, it's one of these magic zombie bites that like none of the clothes are torn, but there's a bite under like 3 layers of clothes. I'm like, how did it do that exactly? But yeah, it sure looked like a bite, but I'm pretty sure it's not. It's just she got either the wood like kind of stabbed her or impaled her a little, or the nail like cut the skin or something. I think that's where they're gonna go with it. But yeah, and of course they're all kind of sitting in there, and like, now we're really screwed, right?
Right.
What are we gonna do? And then they like hear like, somebody like does the like Three Stooges knock on the door, right? The shaving a haircut, right?
Yep.
The thing, and Pearlie looks over at Maggie like, what? Like, what could that be?
Right.
And then of course they open the door, and outside in the courtyard is Bruegel and all of his guys, and they're kind of like putting down all of the walkers that are there. And we get the one Kim Coates line where he's like, oh, guess I missed the party.
Yeah.
Or I'm late to the party,
Late to
or
the
whatever
party as
he
usual,
said,
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it kind of, like I said, I appreciated the first, like you said, the death and the fact that anybody could die at any minute.
Right.
I like that when the show gets us on that razor's edge where it's like, none of these characters have any plot armor. I mean, Maggie and Negan probably the most, but
Right.
The rest of them, they could all go. I mean, Herschel could get killed, right? I mean, there's no reason that says he has to survive for any reason. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, they've already been changing canon anyway by having this show to begin with. So what happens to Herschel, it feels like it's moot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I appreciate that. And I also appreciate that the idea that, hey, they've got 3 episodes left to go. And so they're kind of bringing the story threads together for the conclusion.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not having all these kind of side characters out there that could do something or not do something. It's like, nope, you know what? We're just going to eliminate a lot of these things so we can get down to Maggie, Bruegel, Negan, and the Croat, and those are all the main players that are left.
Yeah. So speaking of getting rid of some of the characters,
yes.
So we get 2 really important Dama scenes. She's reacting to, the Croat and Negan have come back from the meeting. I'm using air quotes here, meeting with Christos,
Yes.
and they've clearly told her what happened, but they've had to spin it. And so the spin is, they were surrounding us and there was nothing we could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Rather than, hey, I turned on the gas and I murdered them all with a spike in the back of their head. And she's upset at the whole thing and blah, blah, blah. And finally, the Croat grows like a tiny bit of a spine in front of her. And is like, basically does the whole "you're ungrateful and I do everything" and blah blah blah, And she reacts almost like a parent would to a petulant toddler, because she's I'm going to go, and we'll talk later when, you've, not so much, she didn't say when you've calmed down, but like when you're not in this mood anymore, or when you've made it, gone through all of this,
Did you not like have flashbacks to Joel telling Ellie, "We'll discuss this when you're yourself"?
Yeah, exactly. It was the same idea, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here's another like foundational scene of the Dama disrespecting him, but he actually like stood up for himself in that moment and was like, how dare you? I do everything for you. And basically he was like, shit happens, Christos is dead, big deal. She was upset because obviously they needed the bodies, they needed the soldiers, they needed the numbers, the numbers, right? And now they're gone, and her big thing is that the Croat, he messes everything up, he gets emotional and whatever. So he had to make it seem like it wasn't my fault, I didn't mean to, it just happened, right? And she wasn't having any of it. And she probably sees right through it, because she's been working with him for years, and she knows he always reacts emotionally in those moments. So we get that scene, and I think in between is intercut like one of the Maggie scenes that we've already talked about. But then we come back to the Croat shows up at her, her apartment, as it were, knocks on the door, Dama, can I come in? I'm here so we can talk again, and whatever. And he's much calmer. And when he comes in, the first thing he sees on the, because it's quiet, she doesn't tell him to come in. And he comes in, and he can see that she's sitting like in the other side of the room, and she's quietly sitting there with her back to the door. And he sees the rat on the floor. And the rat's been like smushed. It's like somebody stomped right on it, right? It's almost like I know what happened. So he sees that and is like, he clocks it and understands like, oh, this is gonna upset her. And he's trying to say, we're gonna be okay, and we're working on, he's trying to mend fences here in this moment, because he feels like, all right, I got upset and I got to say my piece, but really she's in charge and blah, blah, blah. But she immediately is starting to egg him on. Oh, you're the one in charge now. Are you the one that's doing all of the planning and the da-da-da-da? And he's like, I don't know what like, I'm just here to talk. I'm here to calmly talk, whatever. And she just is, and she finally gets to the point where she's like, I saved you from the gutter. This moment was actually really great. When she's like, you're nothing without me, and he from his toes shouts in her face with a finger pointing, and he's like, you're nothing without me. And here's the thing, like, we've heard like a couple of anecdotal stories about how, the Dama found the Croat and what she did to take care of him, and then, blah, blah, blah. But we've never seen it, so this is just, we're relying on people's memories. But everything that we've seen thus far is she's this person who's in some kind of power, sitting on a throne, as it were, and the Croat does all of the dirty work. And he's the one who came up with the chemical composition for the methane and the whatever. So he really is like, you almost feel like you're kind of on his side. Like, he does do everything. She would kind of be nothing without him helping her to achieve all these things, right? So you're kind of, I don't know about you, but I was kind of on the Croat side in this argument. And I don't like the Dama. So I'm like, well, this is great. This is a great, like, he's telling her off, and he's literally having his I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore moment. And it's just really, really well done. And it's all really like, this scene is because of Negan. I mean, we find out in the little stinger scene right after it that is very, very because of Negan, but he's manipulated their emotions to get them both to this point where they are shouting at each other, they are at each other's throats, and it's fantastic. It really is. How did you feel about this scene?
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, it's wonderful because you see the whole plan of Negan's unfold, because before they go in to meet the Dama, when they're like in those like stands or wherever they are, right, where she's sitting several rows above them and they're down below, and they're trying to explain what happened with Christos.
Mm-hmm.
Negan, it like points out, he's like, I still, it doesn't sit right with me the way she treats you. And he says, like, she treats that rat better than she treats you or me. I mean, she loves that thing. And you do all the work, man, and you got to stand up for yourself. And so he's like, he tells him, he's like, don't sweat the Dama. He's like, I got your back.
Yeah.
And so he's planting the seed of like, you got to stand up for yourself, man. She just rips on you all the time, because he knows that when they go into this meeting, she's going to rip on him. And so then when she does, the Croat, being the emotional, wreck that he is, he blows up at her.
Yeah.
And you can tell, I mean, she's like, oh my God, what's going on? When he like starts talking back to her, and like you said, she's like, we'll talk about this later.
Yeah.
And so then she leaves, and you're right. And then clearly Negan goes in and smushes the rat and kills the rat, because that's going to be the spark that's going to set off the whole fire. It's gonna blow up in everybody's face. And like he said, hopefully they'll kill each other, but at a minimum, one of them's going to kill the other one, right? And so that's what he's hoping for. And so that next scene, the Dama comes into the her room, and she sees the rat all smushed first, right? And then you're right. Then here comes the Croat, and he's sort of like, okay, gonna make nice. We're gonna make this. It's all good. I love the Dama. She's gonna give me some hard candy. It's gonna be great. She'll cut off one of my toes. I'm gonna love her. It's gonna be awesome. And he goes in there, and he is totally like you said. He's like, I'm here to to bow and to take my lumps and apologize, and I acted out and I shouldn't have, and you're in charge. It's all great. And she again just starts tearing into him, and here's where he snaps again and is like, I'm nothing without you, you're nothing without me, and they're yelling at each other. And then I loved it because then she looked at him and then she bites him in the hand. It was so great. I'm like, oh my God, she bit him, right?
It was such a great reaction, because they're yelling, they're doing a lot of like pointing in each other's face, and I'm pointing in your face right now, and he made like his biggest like wow, like whatever in her face, and he's pointing in her face, and then his hand got really close, and she just
right
reacted.
Up to her. Oh yeah. And she just grabs it, and like she sinks her teeth like right between like his thumb and his first finger, that meaty part of your hand, right? And just I mean, she's chomping down, right? This is not like a little like I'm just gonna like lightly bite. I mean, she's like going for it, and then he like throws her to the ground and knocks over some of the candles, and like this like big candelabra falls on her, and she's pinned underneath it, and the place starts on fire, and he like has a choice to make, right? He could save her, and he almost does, but then like something in his head is like, this is probably for the best. But I love this scene because, and again, the payoff, of course, at the very end is that we see Negan down in his cell or wherever he is, and he literally has like a knife and is like scraping like rat guts off of the bottom of his shoe.
Yep.
And that's like the final piece of evidence that, or final story piece that, oh, okay, Negan set up the Croat, killed the rat, because he knew the rat was important to the Dama, and then they went at each other's throats. And like I said, I loved it because it, well, like you said, Negan, master manipulator on this show, always has been, always able to read people, see what they think is important, and then use that to his advantage. And and here we got to see it all work out, and it was just I loved it. It was really, really great. It was the best part of the whole. Out of all the storylines in this episode, this was the most interesting and the best done.
Yeah, and what's great is I think, Negan, he stomped the rat to further the emotional like outbursts and to cause chaos, but I don't think he expected it to go the way it did. I bet he thought it would come to blows. Maybe one of them would shoot the other or whatever, but I mean, it was kind of accidental because he kind of pushes her away, and there's like, it's like a heavy rack for like clothes and stuff, and it falls on her, and and there's also the big candelabra that falls, which sets the fire. So it's just all too heavy to get up. Like, that's just an accident. So this is all like happy accident in Negan land. Because Negan he knows how to get under the Croat's skin. He knows how to manipulate him because he knows him. And he's been doing such a good job of manipulating him so far. I mean, he's just going to continue on and do so well there. It was a really great ending, especially with the scraping of the boot was just a really nice little cherry on top.
Oh yeah.
Because even if you didn't see that, you would have known like it's probably Negan that did this. But I like that they, unlike the knife, the Christos knife, this one, they're actually telling you, no, he did this to create chaos, and they're showing you that he did it to create the chaos. And I really, really appreciate that. So we weren't like questioning it or wondering. And I did have a lot of problems with a lot of the episode, but the way they ended it on that note, like I said before, I'm looking forward to the next episode because with more Bruegel, I'm hoping for there to be more sparks, and this really shows you that there's gonna be a big dynamic shift in the next episode. So I'm very, very interested to see how the Croat and how Negan move forward without the Dama. Like what are the next steps,
Yeah, exactly. Who actually is in charge now? Right.
Yeah, that's it. It's pretty cool. I put my note in there about like the manipulation that Negan's doing it's pretty awesome. It makes me look forward to like what's he gonna do next? Is he gonna try and manipulate Bruegel? Because he already has manipulated him a little because he let him know, I know that you're cheating people. But that doesn't matter anymore because the person he cheated the most is Christos, and he's gone. So we really can't hold that over Bruegel anymore because it doesn't matter. Now, the Croat had suspected that there was a lot of cheating going on, but they couldn't prove anything. So it'd be interesting to see like how Negan takes that information. Does he give it to the Croat? Like, are they, is this going to be Bruegel and Maggie versus Croat and Negan, or are they going to join sides? Like, what's going to happen here? I'm very, very interested in what's going to happen in the next episode. So,
yeah. It's real interesting, and based on the scenes for next week, it does look like Bruegel and Hurley at least are going to form some kind of partnership. Is Maggie going to be on that team? Is Maggie going to kind of go over to Negan team? Is Maggie going to be her own team? We don't really have enough info yet, but yeah, it's going to be a real interesting dynamic because like we said, now there's really two factions vying for control of the city.
Right.
And the big question I have with the Croat is, the Dama's gone. Is that group going to be still hold together? How much, did she run things, or like her presence make everyone stay? And you know what I mean? It's like, it's like it's like the top dog is gone. How many people in the Ragazzi are like, yeah, we never really liked your crew, we're leaving. You know what I mean? It's like you don't know how, what kind of internal politics chaos is going to go on in that organization. Are they going to tell anyone that the Dama's dead? Are they going to keep it quiet? Don't tell anyone,
I was considering that too. Like, are they going to just keep this quiet?
Yeah, and then just try and run it themselves and be like, oh yeah, the Dama's, she's in her room listening to music and playing with her rat,
she's
or
not
whatever.
Feeling well
I don't
today.
know. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's got some heartburn.
Yeah, she's got a really high fever. She's just burning up.
Oh yeah. She's got a little too much sun. She's really red.
Yeah. And actually, she's starting to burn. It's just really bad.
She's just burning.
She's burning
up. That's right.
Before we really get off the rails with our terrible humor here, is there anything from your list that we skip, or is there something you want to make sure we chat about before we take our break?
I don't think so. I think we pretty much hit everything. I think when over the weekend when or on Monday or Sunday night or whatever, when I texted you about it after you'd finally seen it, I pointed out that more death in this episode than in multiple seasons of Fear. Right. It was like I said, it was real refreshing to see. Yeah, you know what? Hey, on this show, anybody can die at any time, or mostly anybody.
Mostly everybody can die.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I said, I really enjoyed it, even though there were some moments where I definitely shook my head and went, "What?" But overall, I had a ball with it. So yeah.
Good. All right. Well, that's gonna do it for our analysis of the episode, folks. We're gonna go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're gonna discuss listener feedback that we received and what's coming up on the podcast.
So everyone, please stick around. We'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally gonna get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man on bed and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned...
Toxic Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiances, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from DriveThruRPG.com or ToxicBag.com.
Hey there, everybody. We are back. We're going to jump right into our listener feedback, just like we promised. So first up, we actually have some feedback to share that is not for this show. But we don't have any place to put it because we're not covering the show anymore because it's for the season finale of Last of Us. And our pal Andy is usually about a week behind on the broadcasts. So he sent in his thoughts on The Last of Us, and we wanted to make sure that they were read and heard. And here we go. So Andy wrote in via the email, and he says,
Andy.
Hey. And he says, Hi, Diana. Hi, Steve. First things first. The N of Steven was just a typo. I thought your real name was Steve. And I was absolutely unironically positive about how deeply you guys analyze a scene. It's surprising how good your interpretations are, Diana, for someone who didn't play the game. Oh, why thank you.
Well,
high
someone's
praise.
getting buttered up.
I know, right? All right. He continues on and says, my opinion about the series overall is positive. I loved the first 4 episodes, but the last 3 were boring for me. I love post-apocalypse for the alternative world it depicts. How would humanity survive if the world temperature suddenly drops to minus 100 degrees Celsius? That's what fascinates me about the genre. The quarrel between Ellie and Abby is not interesting for me. In the TV series, neither Ellie nor Abby are the hero. They are both assholes. But in the game, Ellie is the hero. I think the stadium is the main base of the Wolves. I don't remember other bases. A stadium is a great base if the group is around 25 people, but I think for a large group it's not so good. A large base with fields inside is harder to defend. Interesting. The scene where Ellie was almost hanged by the scars confuses me also. It makes no sense at all. When Owen reminded Ellie that it was him who saved her life, I wish that Ellie would have answered with Abby's words, "What life?"
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then his final thoughts are, Ellie is very shocked in the game when she realizes that Mel was pregnant. She even has a kind of collapse, but in general, yeah, killing people is nothing special for her. But TV Ellie also has no problem to cut the throat of a wolf soldier, even if it's not a named one. Greetings from Germany, and Jackson holds, Andy. Andy, thank you so much for writing in. Even though you knew we were finishing up our coverage, I'm glad you sent us your thoughts anyway, and we were glad we could share them here. You know what's interesting is I just binged the entire... I didn't want the official HBO podcast to color my feelings on the series. I didn't want to, dislike something and then listen to them and go, maybe I do like it. I don't know.
Right.
And I wanted my opinions to be like my own formed ones. So I was like, you know what? I'll wait and I'll listen to them later. And I over the last couple of days, this past few days in the weekend, I've binged them all, and it was pretty quick because it's only the 7 episodes. But there was one of the episodes today I was finishing up on. They were talking about, obviously, Ellie and the, killing Nora, and then, is she really bad, and she has like bad feelings and blah blah blah. But they made this good point where they're like, and I think it was Neil Druckmann who said for the video game, he was like, the thing that's interesting is that nobody's a hero and nobody's a villain. There's you have the perception based on which point of view you're taking it from. It's basically what he was saying. So it's just interesting. I thought of that because of what Andy says here, that in the game Ellie's the hero. So their goal was to not have Ellie be the hero. So it's interesting that that's Andy's perception, is that she's the hero in the game. So and I would say that I think a lot of that too is like, she's the main character, like she's the one the story sort of surrounds. And there's a difference between main character and hero to me, because I look at something like, and we've gotten this over the last like 10 to 15 years with TV shows, your Walter Whites and people like that, who are definitely the center of the story, but not a hero. Everything revolves around that person and all the motivations are around that person, but I wouldn't call them a hero, at least to me. But I didn't play the game, so I don't know how that is. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that what the game does, and I think I hope I said this or tried to convey this idea, is that it starts out by painting Abby as this monster. Clearly she's the bad guy. She kills Joel. Beat me, I say we, the game player. You played part one, Joel did wipe out all those guys and gals in Salt Lake, but I mean, there's a reason, right? And that justifies it. It's not that he's a monster himself. No. He killed 18, 19 people like that. Did he have to kill all of them? Probably not, but he did. But we know why he did it, and it's okay, right? And Abby is completely irrational for wanting to kill him for that, right? And you go through the game right up to the point where the show, had the confrontation in the theater when she shoots and we hear Ellie go, no, and then it fades to black, and then it comes back up, and we're back to day one, and now it's Abby's story. And the game does this where it shows you all the stuff Ellie's going through to do this revenge, and then it jumps back, and now it shows you Abby and what she's doing, and you like I said, you kind of learn that there's really not that much that separates Abby and Ellie in their worldview and how they interpret justice and revenge, and you're right, it is there are no heroes. Neither of them is really in the right here for what they're doing, but at the same time you kind of go, yeah, there's a little justification there that they should be seeking justice for what happened, into them and so on. But, I really thought it was very brave of the game to do that, to kind of start out by saying, yes, this is the hero and this is the villain, and then kind of letting us have our perspective change to where you might not think that when it comes back to what happened when those gunshots rang out.
Right.
And we'll have to see if the show can pull that off, or if they even want to. I'm guessing they're going to try, but we'll have to see. And Andy, as far as Ellie's reaction to Mel being pregnant in the game, I honestly, I couldn't remember. I didn't think it was as big a deal as the show. I mean, all the stuff of cutting the baby out with the knife, that I don't remember that happening. Maybe it did, but I don't have any memory of that. So my thought was Ellie just kind of kills them and moves on and doesn't really, have this I'm so sorry. But again, if it's fresher in your mind, that's what happened. That's cool. All right, I will stand corrected. So.
Yeah, but you know what? Again, the thing that's great about watching stuff like this is its perspective. Andy's perspective is different than mine, which is different than yours, which is how things hit you. Is very different, based on your your personal feelings and how you remember the game and how you how you don't remember the game, because I don't have that connection, and but it's interesting how a lot of these scenes have hit people in different ways, and how they feel about Ellie and Abby and all of that has been a little bit different across the board. So I think that's great, because it shows that we're all sort of coming at it from a different place. So,
right.
But thanks for writing in, Andy. We're glad that you took the time to let us know how you felt about the finale and about the whole season as a whole. So thanks, man.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I appreciate it. It's really good stuff as usual. And just one final note on Last of Us. This story popped up on my socials the other day, and I wanted to bring it up. I had mentioned that Abby in the game is like Linda Hamilton in Terminator 2, right? I mean, she's clearly been going to the gym during the apocalypse, because she's got massive arms and shoulders and stuff. And clearly Caitlin Devers does not, right? She did not buff up for it. And I kind of made a jokey joke about either, they didn't offer enough money, or she's just like, yeah, I'm not doing that, or whatever. Well, a story came out about that because some of the fans of the game were like, she doesn't, why doesn't she look like she did in the game? Because they do such a great job of casting people that look really similar to the characters that are in the game version. And it came out, I read this bit that apparently Caitlin Devers was going to do that, and she was going to, maybe not to the extent of the animated character of Abby, but she was going to try and get a little bit buff and have a little bit more muscles in her arms and stuff to be more faithful to the game character. And I guess like her mom got sick in the months before they were going to start shooting, and so she had to like take care of her.
Yeah.
And so that kind of torpedoed any plans of like, I'm going to go live in the gym for the next 4 months, and just become a workout fiend and really try and buff up. And so apparently it was in the cards that she wanted to at least try to do something, and then life kind of intervened. She had to take care of her mom, which I think we can all understand, and so it just never happened. So anyway, that's kind of a little bit of an answer as to why that part of the character did not translate over into the show. So I thought that was kind of cool. I'm like, well, that explains it. So
there you go.
All right, so let's move on. So now all the feedback that we have is for this show, for Dead City. And I believe the first bit we have is for Andy, and this is actually for last week's episode, correct? Is that right? Is episode 4?
Yes, episode 4, yes.
Yeah. Okay, all right. So he's talking about last week, which is the arena fight with Bruegel at the museum, that whole thing. Okay.
Feisty friendly.
Feisty friendly, yes. Where everyone played by the rules-ish.
Yeah.
All right, so he starts out and he goes, and this came via the email again, and he goes, "Hi, Diane and Steve. I checked it, and at the main show finale, Walking Dead main show finale, Maggie says, I want to talk about the future. There's a lot out there to find out about, and I think it's time we did. This sounds as if she left to explore, which is a good idea, but A, exploring only makes sense if you return with your information to your people, and B, you don't take a little kid with you in the zombie apocalypse. Even Daryl left Judith at Alexandria where it is safe." And that's a really good point. Yep, she did. She kind of, turned down this safe place to raise her child, to at least let her child grow up a little bit, and went out, and I'm just going to use air quotes here, on the road, right? And we've all seen that movie, and we know how awful that can be. He goes on to say, unfortunately, making methane from walkers is not exactly rocket science. You put the rotting corpses in an airtight container and get methane. Really? Is that all you have to do? I honestly don't know. I don't know the chemistry in it, but okay, if that's all you got to do, cool. He goes on to say, creating methanol for the cars is more difficult. So if New Babylon is after this technology, what do they plan to do when they reach the methane factory? They don't even have a scientist with them who could learn how it works. I agree, man. The whole plan is so half-baked.
Yeah.
Where they're like, we're going to go get the methane. And then I'm like, and then what are you going to do? There's like 12 of you. How are you going to get it across the water to the mainland? I mean, it's completely not thought out at all. You're absolutely 100% right.
Yeah.
He goes, what is the big problem anyway? Don't grow corn for a year, then this moth is gone. Grow food instead and trade it for methanol. Yeah, good idea.
Yep.
The people in Manhattan eat rats and cockroaches, so potatoes and carrots against methanol sounds like a good deal. But Babylon is anyway only using their cars to drive around and suppress people. Might work with horses also. See, again, man, if you're going to inject logic and like good ideas to this conversation,
who are you?
I got nothing. I can't compete against that, right? He goes, I love a Negan/Maggie couple. That would be interesting. That would make for interesting dialogues, especially if his wife shows up again. But of course, the showrunners don't have the balls to do something like that. If something controversial happens in a TV series, it's the main character's been slain with a golf club, so you can watch his murderer instead. Sigh. Wow. So a little Last of Us dragging into this one too. Interesting. And then he finishes, greetings from Germany, Andy. And he goes, P.S. I also checked the scene when Herschel threatens Negan with a gun at the main show. He was much better at handling a gun when he was a little kid. And then he puts a little smiley. The colon and the parentheses. So
yeah.
So you know what? I remember that scene happening when her little 5-6-year-old Herschel got the gun and pointed it at Negan, but I don't remember the particulars of it. So I'd have to go back and look. But it would not surprise me if he handled it like a pro back then, because like I believe you pointed out last week, he lived on the road with Maggie for like his whole life. He should know how to handle weapons, right?
You think?
I mean, right?
Yeah. Yeah. How is he just now learning how to use guns and throwing knives and stuff like that?
Yeah. It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, anyway, thank you for the feedback, man. Very interesting stuff. Maybe, fingers crossed, we might get that Megan. We'll call him Megan. That's the Negan Maggie couple. It'll be Megan. So maybe we'll get that. You never know, right?
It's true. Thanks again for writing in, Andy. We look forward to hearing from you again next week as well. What you thought about this current episode 5.
Absolutely.
All right, so continuing with our feedback, this is feedback actually for episode 5. So next up, we got feedback from our pal Karen, not related to Lauren Cohen, via the Facebook. And she wrote in...
Hey, Karen.
She wrote in pretty quickly after the episode aired, which is never a good sign.
Right.
She says, I'm having such a hard time watching this episode. I just hate everything that everyone is doing. Ginny sucks. Like, she even turned the gun on Herschel. He's a dummy, but he didn't do anything to her. Navarro's was such a clown. I hate that she had any control over anyone. She basically let that walker eat her. Oh shit, she bit him. Obviously, that's her reaction to the Dama. Didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
Didn't see that coming. That's it? I have no idea where this show is going anymore. No one's plans make any sense. Looking forward to your thoughts. Are we at fear level yet? I'd still go down with the ship. Cheers. So thanks, Karen, for writing in. So clearly, as a completist, she'll watch the episodes regardless. It doesn't matter if they're bad or not. I mean, hey, we all made it through fear. I would say that even like the worst scenarios in these, handful of episodes so far, I would, we all have PTSD about the fear episodes, so I get it. But at least they are living in like normal circumstances, like post-apocalyptic circumstances. They're trying to work on energy and things that, the things that they're doing make sense within the context of the show. Like, we don't have any, beer balloons, and nobody's trying to rebuild a plane or anything like that. And no one's
glue it back together.
Yeah, no kidding. And no one's like, there's no nuclear fallout or anything like that. It's just your normal humdrum post-apocalyptic thing. Now, their motivations and their plans for trying to get like the methane, like you're talking about, the plans themselves may not make sense, but at least, I've said this already this season so far, at least the things that they're doing are normal things. We're fighting over an energy source, we're fighting over territory, we're upset over someone taking our home and our guns, we're in fighting for power. The power thing is always up there. Once we got to a certain point on fear, I wasn't sure what they were actually fighting for anymore, because there really wasn't anything to, it was, try to not go near, Strand's tower, whatever that was. You know what I mean? Like, there was just so much crazy, fantastical stuff that it just didn't make any sense, that it made the whole series, like the last couple of seasons, so terrible. I would at least give Dead City this. Like, they're in like a normal city with normal apocalyptic things sort of happening around them. So there's at least that. So Karen, I don't think we're at fear level yet. I'm disappointed with some of the writing and some of the situations in this episode too. Some of the character motivations and like you were saying, like what are people doing and the methane plan and all this other stuff. Like I get it. Like those writing and plot situations aren't the best. But at least these are characters that are normal, that make sense within here. The relationships between all these people kind of make sense. So it's not, I would say it's not at fear level yet. Do you agree?
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah. The worst this show has done is not even close to the worst that the Knucklehead Fear seasons were. I mean, yeah, there's no comparison. Not for me anyway, not at all. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there's definitely some things where, like I said, where you're kind of like, where it's just some little moments. And episode 2 was that was just a bad TV episode.
Yeah.
I don't care what show it's on. That's a bad TV episode. That the whole invasion plan, everything about it just was so, I mean, for me, I could never see anybody being like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. You know what I mean? It's just no. Even people with no military ideas or thoughts would be like, this is a bad idea. You know what I mean? So yeah. But the rest of the show, I think there are parts of it that I think are really good and fun and entertaining. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But right. I'm having a ball watching it and just kind of enjoying it for what it is.
Yeah, agreed. And I didn't have a ball this week, but I am, based on some of the things that they did in the episode, I'm looking forward to having a ball next week because, dude, coats, you know?
Coats. Anyone? Coats.
Coats. Thanks for writing in, Karen.
Next week.
No, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say, hopefully next week, Brugo will not be late for the party.
Right. He should be right in the middle of the party.
I hope so.
Yeah. So thanks for writing in, Karen. We look forward to hearing your thoughts on next week's episode, and I hope it's a little bit better for you. So, yeah. Thanks again.
Me too. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah. So moving along, our final piece of feedback comes from Erica Price.
Yay!
Erica! And she sent this in via the Facebook, and she goes, I'm sorry, I was late last week. Please don't make me eat a live rat.
We'll think about it.
I don't know. Well, yeah, it's in the maybe pile right now. But
yeah.
She goes, starting off strong with a mediocre guard and an axe from seemingly nowhere. If I was Negan, I'd wham bam on those 2 blowhards and get out of Dodge. And you know what, Karen or Erica? I think he is doing that.
Yes.
She goes on to say, I really think the Dama is bluffing about Annie and Joshua. Honestly, this goal of stealing the methane is so bad. They should just grab the Croat and he can do it back in New Babylon or wherever they want it set up. That's a good idea. Mm-hmm. What happens once they run out? They go back to get more. So which is again a really good point. Are they going to set up like a transport system? Are they going to be ferrying barrels of methane across the bay or the river or whatever? I don't know. Good point. Good question. Then she goes, so they don't need Christos and his men after all? LOL, Negan's no dummy. Throwing the Croat, he's got his back, knowing full well the Dama will be pissed. Which is, Yep, he's setting the stage, right? Pulling the strings.
Oh, yeah.
And then he goes, in true Walking Dead fashion, a perfectly fine group of people eking out their own existence in the apocalypse is wiped out after helping out our group. Surprise face. Yeah, absolutely. There's a very strong argument to be made that the villains of The Walking Dead are the main characters because every group they run into ultimately gets wiped out, without a doubt. Without a doubt. She goes on, and the next thing she says is, Roxana's neck breaks instantly, yet Maggie can withstand 30 seconds of dangling?
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't she just slip the noose up over her head instead of standing there gawking at the melee? You can see she's able to grab at her neck even though her hands are tied. Why are the cafe people just standing there allowing themselves to be walker bait? She goes, oh, good. I'm so glad Navarez stood still long enough to submit. Good riddance, you dum-dum. oh, the show is getting so bad. Ding dong, the Dama's dead. I'll be out of town when you're recording next week, so have fun. All right, so we will probably not get any feedback next week from Erica, but you know what? You have an excused absence, so that's okay. Yeah, you know what? The only thing I'd point out about Maggie and Roxana and the difference there is that I believe Roxana's hands were tied behind her back.
Yes.
And so when she fell, like her neck took all of the force of that rope, and you're right, you do hear her neck break.
Yeah.
And with Maggie, her hands were tied together, but they were still in front of her. And so when the chair fell, she was able to grab. I thought she was able to grab the noose and kind of stop it from, pulling against her neck a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what kind of allowed her to kind of dangle like that and not die instantly, not break her neck or not to be strangled. Did you see that too?
Yes, I saw that because they were getting Maggie like prepped for. They were able to go through the whole shebang with Roxana. You know, they got her up on the chair, they took her hands, they tied them behind her back, and then they kicked it out from underneath her.
Right.
With Maggie, they got her up on the chair, they put the noose there, and then all hell broke loose, and they weren't able to do the rest. So her hands were still tied in front of them. So when the chair got knocked out by accident by the walker, then she was able to sort of hold the rope off of her neck as much as possible, as much as she possibly could. Until someone put the chair underneath her.
Then Ginny shows up and puts the chair under there for her to stand on. Yeah, right. So they tried to explain, why. Yeah. Why is it that Roxana, the chair gets kicked out dead, and then with Maggie, she's like, no, I'm fine. Look at me, I'm just hanging around, And you're right. All the stuff about the methane, and again, it's the worst plan ever, the worst idea ever that they, we're gonna go get the methane. What? How? And like we pointed out, even if you do get it, then what? The whole point is you got to get it over there. So yeah. But yeah, very fun, great feedback. We love it when you write in, Erica, and I hope you have fun out of town. Hopefully it's a pleasure trip and not something else. And we look forward to hearing from you perhaps in the future.
Yeah. Hopefully if not next week, we'll hear from you the week after. And remember, when we cover the episode, it is a little later than we normally do. So if you're gone like the whole week, there's one thing. But if you watch it on Sunday and you're still available, just, send it in. I'm just saying. But anyway, enjoy your time off next week. And I guess you have an excused absence. We'll see. All right. So what's coming up next on the podcast? Next week is episode number 6. I can't believe we're here already. We've only got 3 more to go. Oh, excuse me.
I know.
So episode 6, we've got a title. And what is it with these long, complicated titles? Title of the episode is Bridge Partners Are Hard to Come By These Days. We don't really have a description. There was a little bit of a clips package at the end of the episode. So, that looks like, we get some... obviously some more Bruegel. We got the fallout of the Dama's gone, and we've got the Croat there, and some all the players are fully represented. So, but no description yet on what we can expect, really. So, yeah.
Yeah, the scenes like we see that. Bruegel and Pearlie kind of sit down, and then Pearlie afterwards comes up to Maggie and he's like, Bruegel offered me the methane if we help him, and Maggie's like, why would you trust him? What makes you think he won't just double cross you? And so we kind of see that dynamic, and then I think there's also a shot of like the charred corpse of the Dama. Mm-hmm. And you hear Negan saying the Dama's dead, and so I know there's been some speculation like, did she die at the end? We didn't actually maybe there's a dumpster there that she was able to crawl under or something, right? But I think that the fact that they showed that charred body, that kind of tells you that, she really is dead and she's not going to make a miraculous recovery, at some point here. But again, like we said, now we have Negan and the Croat, and now they're running all of that part of the island. And so, like you said, it's kind of all being set up. So we'll have to see. And I'm a little disappointed there's no description. I mean, how long does it take them to write 2 sentences? But, whatever. We'll just have to deal with that next week.
Yeah. I'm curious to see, like, we're focusing on, like, the death of the Dama will have immediate impact on Negan and the Croat's relationship. I'm curious to see what Bruegel's reaction is, but I wonder what Herschel's reaction is going to be. Like, will he go off the deep end or something? Because he had, like, this connection to her, and he was kind of looking forward to maybe spending more time with her, it seemed like. So I don't, or maybe he just wasn't sure. Like, he was thinking of the future that might involve him being part of her group or something, but didn't know what that would entail. It just was something to sort of dream about, I guess. So what does that mean, that that's not possible now? How will he react emotionally now because of that? So I think that's an interesting little, as much as I'm not super excited about, like, the Herschel storyline, I think that he might have the most surprising reaction, might possibly have the most surprising reaction about the Dama being gone. So that'd be
right.
Now, no, go ahead. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I was gonna say, will he still, like, be like, I want to stay in New York, or will, like, he suddenly be like, whoa, where have I been for the last 2 weeks? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's possible. Now, here's the thing. Next week's episode is for real. No teasing this time. Is for real, directed by Lauren Cohen. What's hilarious
see, I'm not falling for this, kid, all right?
What's funny is
you've hurt me in the past on this.
There literally is an entry on Wikipedia on the page for the show that has an entry that says Lauren Cohen is directing, episode 6 or whatever. There was an erroneous report that she was also directing 4, but it's just episode 6. So it's just funny that, like, it was reported incorrectly, and that they're just, like, including that as part of the Wikipedia page. I just thought that was hilarious. So, yeah.
All right. Again, I'll believe it when I see it, because you've hurt me in the past. So.
I've hurt you. I was just reporting what I was told.
Yeah,
I was given incorrect information.
You're the one that said it, so it's your fault.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Well, so that's next week on the podcast, and then we did get one pretty big TV show premiere, like, information finally. We've been waiting to see when the final season for Stranger Things was going to air, and they finally released the dates. To be fair, I really hope you don't have anything planned over the 3 major holidays at the end of the year, because that's when all of the episodes are going to release. They're doing them in, like, these little blocks. Remember last time they did, like, the 2 different volumes. They did, like, 3 episodes, 3 or 4 episodes, and then they did another volume of, like, 3 or 4 episodes, and they were long, etc. So they're doing something similar, and it's the day before Thanksgiving, I think. They're releasing volume 1, and it's, like, the first 3 or 4 episodes. And then on Christmas Day, they're releasing the second volume, and that's the next, like, I think 3 episodes, and then they're saving the actual finale, which is just 1 episode, and that will be on New Year's Eve.
Interesting.
So the one main complaint I've seen from people is, if you've got plans and you have to, you'll get to it, like, not the day of, but maybe a day or 2 after it, because they'll drop all those episodes at once on those dates, right? And so they're like, I'm fine with if I have to wait, but will I be spoiled in the meantime?
Right.
So I feel people with that. That's a tough one. Yeah. I mean, and if they're longer episodes too, it's not like you're not gonna binge like 4 1-hour episodes. If they stick to what they did last time, these might be like hour and a half a piece. It's hard to say.
Well, that's what I was gonna. Yeah, I was gonna ask you if there was any bit on there. Is it going to be where like episode 1 is 16 minutes, episode 2 3 hours and 42 minutes, and episode 3 75 minutes? Because it was all over the place last year, or the last time they did the last season. I mean, because you'd sit down and like, watch the Stranger Things episode, and you're like, oh my god, I gotta like camp out for like 7 hours for this one, Right. So. Yeah,
all they did was release the dates and like the volumes, like how many episodes are in each of those release dates. But they haven't said anything about the length of the episodes yet. So it remains to be seen, but I am mentally and emotionally preparing for what we had last time, which were these episodes that had crazy lengths. So.
All right.
Yeah. And I couldn't find anything else in the news or anything to chat about. Do we got anything that we should be chatting with people about?
We might have mentioned it last week. We might have mentioned it on the Last of Us one. I can't remember, but they did announce that coming up this summer, they're re-releasing Day of the Dead into the theaters.
Yes.
So for the 40th anniversary, and I've already looked, and here in Chicago, it's playing at the Music Box, because of course the Music Box is the greatest theater in the world, on July 15th. It's a Tuesday night. Is when they're going to show it. So if you want to see that movie, if you're a youngster and was not around when it was released in movies in the theaters back the first time, or if you're an old person like me and want to rewatch it in the big screen again, just kind of check your local theaters and see if they have made any advance announcements for the summer, and it should be coming up in probably about 5-6 weeks. Is when you should start looking for it. So
yeah, July 15th. Very exciting stuff. Yay!
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we're already we're talking through some things and putting together plans of what we'll be covering next. So that there's a couple of things on the table. If there's something that we haven't covered that you'd love to see us take a stab at, no pun intended, then let us know. If there's something that you watched recently. We don't have plans to cover it, but I'm just going to say, too, I talked the last couple of weeks about the Eternaut, which is the Argentinian series, and I did finish it. So I have thoughts on it, personally. Did you watch it?
I'm just finished episode 4.
Oh, so. You did? Okay. Mm-hmm. I really, really liked the first few episodes, and there's like a little bit of a turn that happens.
There's like a massive turn in episode 4 where you're like, oh, okay. Well, now this show is totally different than what I thought it was.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, and I wasn't a huge fan. I went along for the ride. I'm not entirely certain that they stuck the landing, but I'm curious to hear what you think of it.
Okay.
You, Steve, and also you, listeners, if you try the series out. I really like the first few episodes are just such classic like apocalypse, world falling apart stuff. It's really, really, really well done. So I'm just curious if it outweighs some of the stuff that I personally wasn't a fan of, and maybe someone else watched it and they enjoyed it. So we'll have to see. But stick with it. I'm curious to see what you think of it.
All right.
So
I will share my thoughts with you when I finish. So.
All right, good. All right, but until then, we're gonna put together some plans for things in the future. But next week we'll be back talking about Dead City with you. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
'Cause those body shots, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
The following podcast contains spoilers. I'm gonna do that again.
Wow.
That was bad. It's been a while. It's been a while since I flubbed right at the beginning. That's your that's your B-roll right there.
I was gonna say we got our stinger.